Super excited to announce the Law Firm Retreat Design Your Future being held this August 5th through 8th, 2026 in the Denver, Colorado area. Teaming up with law firm architects, Power Strategy Group, we're going to be having an amazing opportunity for up to 15 firms to work on the business, not in the business. Find out more at powerstrategygroup.com.
From the point of view of if you're a lawyer and you're looking for both a commercial and professional reason to exist, what is it that, if people can go to a machine and get, and again, it's not a question of, will a machine or will AI be able to produce exactly what a really good lawyer can produce, and to have the exact same outcome and experience, but for, 10% of the cost, 1% of the time. I don't think that's the standard we should use. Or we should be looking at, can the AI generate 80% of what a mediocre average lawyer can do? And I don't think there's much question at this point that the answer is yes, it can.
Well, welcome back. My name is Ruby Powers, your host of Power Up Your Practice. And today I have a guest that is going to be a keynote at ABA TECHSHOW. I've long been observing him and reading his work, and I'm so excited to have him on. Jordan Furlong, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ruby. It's fantastic to be here.
Yes. And so you are a legal analyst, a consultant, and a forecaster. And I guess tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and then because I'm really fascinated how you have such a great perspective on the future practice of law, and because I'm very fascinated by that topic myself, and so to know that I can go look at your Substack and sort of you've already done the thinking for me. I love that.
Well, at least some of it, but not the whole thing. Trust me. Well, no, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I guess the best way to look at what I do is that I'm a lawyer by education and by training, and I'm and licensed and so forth. But the practice of law wasn't for me, and I wasn't for it. And so I really spent some time, as I think a lot of people do when they come out of law school and they're not quite sure what they're going to do with this, new, attribute and license and everything that they have. So I spent some time in legal journalism, in the professional trade publications around the legal sector. And I just got really interested in how legal services are delivered, how law firms operate, how people do, or in most cases do not, access and find remedies for their legal problems. And I really just turned that into, and I love to write. So that I would begin writing about this. I would blog about this because this was back in the days of blogging when that was a thing. And just really developed an interest in understanding where the legal sector is now, what's happening to it, where events and forces are taking us, and then what lawyers and everybody else should do to prepare for that. And so I really spent most of the 2010s talking about that. I would speak to law firms and legal organizations, and I would say, this is what's going to happen. And then it happened, and it's still happening. And as I said to someone, I used to get introduced as a legal futurist. I said, well, future is now behind us, so now what are we going to do? So that's really that's kind of what I try to position myself as, someone who is just trying to understand what's going on as best I can, to relate that as accurately as possible, and to give as much guidance and perspective as an insight as I can to help people get ready for the changes that are yet to come.
So you are one of our keynotes for the ABA TECHSHOW 2026, and I'm on the executive board, or I'm the co-vice chair. And so we had the opportunity to discuss and preparing for your keynote, and so you're going to be talking to us about the lawyers we need and sort of that post AI legal profession. And I was thinking about this because when I sort of first, I knew about you, but I wasn't watching closely. But one of the articles that really got my attention was 2 years ago. And it was where you said the advocate, advise, and accompany. These are the 3 essential roles lawyers will play in the post AI era. And this came out like right when I was doing like a futuristic keynote at a local law practice management
Mm.
conference. And so I was like, yes, this is awesome. And so I've incorporated a lot of that.
Oh,
And in also giving you credit, obviously, all the
oh, well,
time. Um,
that's cool.
but I mean, maybe give us some of the key ideas that you are seeing going forward in this post AI world, and the future is already here. It's like, do you have like a term for that? Like we're already in the
Yeah.
future? I don't know.
Well, the famous William Gibson observation: the future's already here; it's just not
Mhm.
evenly distributed. And
Mm,
and we're starting to see some of that already in the legal space around AI. But no, I mean, when the first time I noticed or I had really come across generative AI was around the same time everybody else did, in the spring of 2023, when
mhm,
ChatGPT, I think it was version 4, came out, and it was this huge leap in capacity and accessibility. And I spent a few couple of days playing with it, and I just thought this is going to change most everything about the legal sector, because it was immediately clear to me that there was potential here, and I think that potential is now being realized for generative AI. And at that point we really only had the chatbot interface, but we're going to have many more before we're all done.
mhm,
Generative AI was essentially a source of legal cognition, a source of legal intelligence, in a way that previously was an asset that you could only find with lawyers or legally trained professionals. We talk about coming out of law school. We were told early on by our professors, we're going to teach you how to think like a lawyer, and they did. They didn't tell us how to stop, which would have been nice a couple of times, but what they don't teach you, of course, is other aspects, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Um, and it became very clear to me quickly that generative AI was going to uh, turn what used to be a scarce and valuable asset, the ability to legally reason and analyze, to generate
mm,
legal documentation that had at least a surface level of validity and effectiveness. It was going to turn that from a scarce resource into something essentially ubiquitous. Right? There's like 1 billion people around the world right now, minimum, who are using some kind of generative AI large language model on a weekly basis. Probably at this point, it's getting closer to daily. The surfeit of legal intelligence that's available right now is a game changer. And for lawyers, that's a challenge in two ways. One, so much of what we do in terms of making a living, providing services to clients, so much of it is legal work, right? We
mhm,
research, we analyze, we reason, we opine, we create documents, review and revise documents. We do all of these, and it's a lot of really intense work with ideas and with documents. And this is squarely in generative AI's wheelhouse. So right off the bat, we're in a position where stuff that would take us minutes or hours or days to do, this technology is doing in seconds. And that cannot be anything but a fundamental challenge to the business that lawyers provide. And the second piece of it is that it kind of goes to our identity as
mhm.
lawyers, because when you ask lawyers, what's your differentiation, what are you proudest of, what do you, and they'll often say, well, I'm just really smart, I have such expertise, I have such knowledge. It's like, really? Yeah, no other lawyers are smart? That's interesting. But there is this real sense of, I work hard, I put in a lot of hours, I bill a lot of hours,
Oh,
I create a lot of legal materials and instruments and documentation, and I get people to a point where they can get their legal outcomes and legal solutions. And now we have automated, mechanized competition for that role. So, what is it about us that makes us special? What makes us worth hiring? Right? And there are many positive answers to that question, but it's a question we've never had to ask ourselves before. So that's kind of what I want to tackle in the keynote at Tech Show, to talk about both the significant implications to the legal sector and to legal businesses, and really to the entire legal community, put broadly, but also to what does this mean for us as professionals? Where do we go from here?
I think also in this conversation, I think about the Richard Susskind and Daniel Susskind book, The Future of
Mm,
Professions, and
yeah.
And one of my key takeaways was just that lawyers are not going to have the oligopoly on legal information and knowledge. But I like the way you stated it with just more accessibility to that complex legal reasoning. And I think my other thoughts along from inspired by from that book, but it's a lot of this conversation is just the way the information will be delivered and the way it fundamentally redefining or reshaping how the expertise is delivered, and sort of just reimagining the whole model. A lot of the conversations I've been having with people on the podcast over the last couple of years and with legal tech CEOs and founders, we get the impression that a lot of the admin tasks are going away because they're being automated, eliminated, and we are able to use AI like as much as possible. So, but if that also too, if our prospective, a potential client has access to a lot of these tools as well, they can find. We're finding people that are just trying to sidestep using a lawyer altogether
Hmm.
because they have so much access to tools. But anyway, there's a lot to unpack in this topic. So,
Hmm.
what are other things that you would suggest that the attorneys consider in this post AI world?
Yeah, well, again, from the point of view of if you're a lawyer and you're looking for both a commercial and professional reason to exist, what is it that if people can go to a machine and get and again, it's not a question of will a machine or will AI be able to produce exactly what a really good lawyer can produce, and to have the exact same outcome and experience, but for 10% of the cost, 1% of the time. um, I don't think that's the standard we should use. Or we should be looking at, can the AI generate 80% of what a mediocre average lawyer can do? And I don't think there's much question at this point that the answer is yes, it can. Right? So there's a couple of ways to look at it. There is one way you can look at it as a lawyer to say, oh no, right? That my stock in trade is being mechanized. What my billable
Mm,
hours are turning into non-billable automated seconds. I can't sell this stuff to people anymore. I can't sell the generation of work product because although, yes, we are in the business of giving our clients legal solutions, we are in the business of bringing our clients legal outcomes. That's great. But that's not what we sell. We sell the labor and time and effort and work generated to get them to that point. And we know this to be the case, right? I sort of say to lawyers will say to me, "Oh, well, I sell I sell outcomes and I sell experiences." I said, "No, you don't. You sell hours, and I know you do because I've seen your bills." Right? Because you know, I hire lawyers for to do stuff, and there's
uh-huh.
two columns on the bill. Right here, what we did. Over here, at the number of hours that were spent, and the dollars amount is under the number of hours. So this is the problem is I think lawyers are still in the business of giving clients or helping clients to achieve their outcomes or their solutions. You are in the business of helping your client get from point A to point B. But what you're selling is no longer what you used to sell, because you used to sell the time and the effort that you undertook as an expert, as one of those
Mhm,
scarce providers of legal insight and analysis and skill and proficiency around documentation and assessment and review. And you took all the time it took you to do that. You tallied it up, you stuck a number on it, and you sent it out, and that was how you made your money. You're going to have to come up with something new. So that's the first way you can kind of look at it is that this is a massive challenge to me and to us as a profession, because our stock and trade, the thing we sold, is no longer something we can sell, and it's not clear to me exactly what will replace it. And as a very brief
mhm.
sidebar, I've had some fascinating conversations with lawyers, and because I've kind of advanced this point to them, and they become honestly, Ruby, the only word I can give you for it.
Defensive? Oh.
No, it's not defensive. It's
Oh.
distraught. They are
Oh, yeah.
distraught because I say,
Mhm.
but what else can I sell? If I can't sell the time it
Yeah.
took me to do this, what is and they it's really kind of they're struggling so badly to find something that they can sell to people. So, and I
Mhm.
will talk a little bit
Yeah.
about what you actually can sell. But that's one approach you can take to what AI is doing to the business of being a lawyer. The second
And
approach. Oh, so go ahead.
Oh no, well, I mean, and I think that's why, like, having watched this whole AI evolution the last few years, through
Hmm.
we're almost up to like 4 years or something. Like, yeah, there people are at, I think about the Rogers innovation curve and where people are and the innovators and the early adopters, and there were so many people like with their head ostriches with their head in the sand and like, no, this isn't happening, or
Hmm.
like I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what I can do and what I can't do, or I don't know. They're just like, maybe this will go away. This
Hmm.
will be a fad, or maybe I'll retire and I won't have to think about this or something like
Oh, I
that.
get that a
But
lot. Yeah.
but then there's I think realizes this is not going away. In fact, it's gotten faster, and like the things that they said, oh, we have to be worried about this, like, or worried about it, it might be 5 or 10 years, it's like happening pretty darn fast. But I
Mhm.
know it goes back to that, like the future is unevenly distributed. I completely see that in people and how attorneys approaches, but
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, well, and just to that point, I mean, I would say the median lawyer, I don't mean typical or average, what have you, the median lawyer out there in the world where they are on AI is that they've basically heard about that Mata versus Avianca case, where
Mm,
a lawyer got in big trouble because he used AI and it made up cases and he got in trouble with the courts and he was in the New York Times. And that is the extent of their knowledge or concern about AI. And that's fine, right? You meet people where they are. Lawyers are busy
mhm,
people, they have a lot going on in their lives, and when you are in the trenches, which is the analogy that lawyers offer to me most often to describe what they do, which by the way is a very revealing and interesting choice, but we can address that separately. Is you don't have time to look at that kind of thing. So again, one of the things I'm trying to do, and not just me, there's a lot of us out there trying to do this, to sort of illuminate the landscape a little bit more, so that even when you are in the trench working, you can look, oh, geez, okay, fine. So for one piece of it is it's a threat to me. That's
mhm,
how a lawyer can interpret this. It's a threat to my livelihood. Okay, and that's a reasonable way to look at it. Another way to look at it is this. There is, as we all know, a massive number of people out there who do not get legal remedies, legal solutions to their problems that have legal aspects to them. And there is a lot of research out there that talks about this. We talk about, first of all, unrealized legal problems. People who are suffering a problem and they don't appreciate that it has a legal dimension to it. Right? They just say, "Oh, it's bad luck. It was an act of God. It was this happened to me," and they are unaware that the law provides a framework and a potential remedy for their situation. And that's a good chunk here. That's like 30-40%, I think, in some
mhm,
reports. And then there's another chunk that are aware of it, but also, and maybe in that first group, you also get people, I'm kind of aware, but I'm not going to do anything about it, c'est la vie, whatever, right? Then there's people who, yeah, I am aware that what I'm going through has a legal element to it, and I would like to pursue a remedy. I'd like to find a way forward on this, but I don't know where to go or how to start. I don't have the resources. I don't have I don't have the systemic literacy essentially to
mhm,
understand, because for lawyers it's like, well, of course it's obvious what you do. You do this, right? And lawyers say this, and the day before they entered law school, they didn't have any better clue than the rest of us, right? I say
true,
they,
true.
we, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there is. There are so many pathways available, or there ought to be pathways available for it, but they can't because the law is inaccessible to them. And that's not just a
Mm,
question of I can't afford a lawyer, right? Although it is, a lot of times it is I don't know where to find reliable legal information that applies to my situation, or the justice system in my area is inadequate to help reach me and to give me assistance and to work with me on this. There's a lot of reasons why we have and have had for 30, 40, 50 years now an access to justice problem. So what does AI offer us? AI offers people, I can give you access to information about the law. I can apply the information about the law to a fact situation that you give me. I can provide you with some context. I can point you towards resources that exist that you wouldn't know where to find or what to do with necessarily. I can be essentially an AI. I can be a legal guide, assistant, Sherpa. Choose your noun, but I could get you started. And what this does, this is empowering to people. AI is this is what I believe about AI generally. It's a fundamentally empowering technology. It takes what used to be scarce, going back to the Suskins and their point of view about, the defining nature of the professions is that they have safeguarded expertise and they dole it out at a
Mm-hmm.
high fee, which I find a very persuasive argument. And AI takes that expertise and it says, here you go, it's all yours, to go with it, and you can make use of what it will. Bottom line on this, which I'm taking too long to get to, what
It's
AI
fine.
can do, it can take the number of people, a huge number of people, millions upon millions of people who are hopelessly removed from and don't have any way to access the legal system. It can bring them a lot closer. It can bring them closer to a point where, like, oh, I can start to address my own problem. I can start to find resources. I am empowered. I am feeling more confident. I can start to move forward. It's very important that I make this point. This is not about saying, oh, look at the size of this untapped market. I see references to the $1 trillion market of unmet legal need. No, that's not how you look at it, and that's a very exploitative and
Hmm.
condescending way to look at it. What you look at it is, here is an opportunity for human flourishing that we have not encountered before. Think of all the people. Think of all the people who die intestate, right? Because they didn't know how to had no way to make a will. Think of all the problems that are created. You and I both know people who died without a will, and their families were plunged into problems and issues and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Think of all the small businesses that can't launch, or they launch and they die because they didn't have the basic documents that they needed to get going. Think of all the opportunity this creates. That's why AI is empowering. And that's why lawyers should look at this and say, this will help bring so many more people closer to the legal system. And I, as someone who I'm still an expert in the legal system, I understand how it works. It's an expert system. I'm an expert. I can guide them. I can be helpful. I can be useful. That, I think, is the proper approach to take as a lawyer to what AI offers to us.
That's really encouraging because it's sort of like the rising of all the boats for everyone, all
Yeah.
of society, and then but it's also making us reimagine how we are going to provide the legal services,
Yeah.
and so that's where we have to sort of reinvent ourselves a little, reimagine, and
Mhm.
have a paradigm shift in that space
Yeah.
as practicing attorneys.
Yeah, and that's essentially that kind of the second half of what I want to talk about in the tech show keynote, which is to say, so we are coming to a point where what the market needs from lawyers is going to be different in future than it was in the past. In the past, they came to us to say, bring us to a solution, and we'll pay you for the time and the effort it took you to
Hmm.
craft all the stuff and so forth. Now there is almost no time and effort involved in the crafting of the stuff. If I wanted to, as a reasonably intelligent individual, I could figure out enough using the most current. If I've subscribed to any of the frontier models, I pay the $20 a month to get the absolute top end. I will get enough from there to understand my problem more accurately, to get a sense of what the likeliest options ought to be, and to get a sense of, and I can even get a sense of roughly how much it's going to cost me in terms of time and money and everything else to take this forward. Okay.
This episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool. And then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, INSSoom, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email, and right inside your inbox. Then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it.
What do we need to be as lawyers? So, like I say, all the people now coming closer to the legal system. Why would anybody still come to me as a lawyer? What is it that I'm now selling? And and one of the reasons why I think it's so important for us to re-examine the legal education and formation system is that we have been producing legal professionals who are fundamentally focused on ideas, documents, they are looking down all the time. The average lawyer spends their day like this, right? They're typing, they're like this, they're checking, they're looking, and so forth. They look down, they look ahead, back to the trenches analogy, right? But they don't look up, and they don't look around, and they don't reach out, right? Law is an expertise profession. It is not an interpersonal profession for the most part. Later in your career, as you become more proficient, as you become, say, you're a partner at a law firm, or you're a high power person of some kind, you're a rainmaker. Yeah, sure. That's when you're reaching out. But we don't train lawyers that way. We spend 3 years of teaching lawyers to think about, to read cases, to analyze legal issues, to do issue spotting, right? I'm fond of saying law schools don't teach you how to be a lawyer. Law schools barely even teach you how to be a judge. Law schools teach you how to be law professors, fundamentally, right? It's a self-perpetuating economy. Fine.
Well,
Right?
I want to put a plug. I do teach law practice management or law entrepreneurship, and I've assembled a group of adjunct professors around the country, the U.S. So I'm willing to expand to Canada and the whole world. But yeah, I'm trying to change that because
Yeah.
you're so right, and I add a lot of legal tech in that conversation because I think they're going to need it. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
continue.
and which by the way is terrific, and I'm really glad you're doing that. I would just bring your attention to the word adjunct, right? Which
Okay.
tells you everything you need to know about law schools, because what you are teaching is the breath of life. It is the pumping blood and the bone and the infrastructure of what makes you a lawyer. And as far as law firms are concerned, that is tertiary at best. Sorry, law schools are concerned. That's
Hmm.
tertiary at best, right? That's not what they're in the business of doing. They are not in the business of developing lawyers. They will tell you that very openly. Deans maybe, but law faculty, law professors will tell you that for sure. You know what? Fine. You're an independent organization. You have academic integrity. You can teach whatever the hell you like, as far as I'm concerned. The problem is that for me, and I am now placing myself in the position of being the admissions people in the legal profession, I need to make sure these people, when they come in, are competent and fit to deliver legal services to people. And at best, law school takes 3 years and $100 to $150,000 to bring you maybe 15% of the way there. And the other 85% is essentially the bar exam. And that's it. A little bit different here in Canada, but that's fundamentally what it comes down to. So fine. But the focus on your legal knowledge, your proficiency with ideas, and your issue spotting, and your ability to write, and all this kind of stuff, that is not what people are going to need us for, right? Right. I don't need someone to analyze the law for me anymore, because AI is going to do it. And I'm not even talking about
Mm.
ChatGPT. I'm talking about Harvey, or I'm talking about Lexis Protege, or I'm talking about Clio VLEX, and all the other products. And we are in the toddlerhood, not the infancy, but the toddlerhood of
Mm.
legal AI. And it's going to get a whole lot better, right? And I can be a really, really smart, sharp lawyer, and I can give great legal analysis, and the machine's going to be better than me at that. It just is, right? So there's no point training people to do this stuff. There is a point in training and educating people to be able to evaluate and to assess and to look at what somebody, whether it's a machine or whatever else, generated and said, is this valid? Is this effective? Is this going to do what the client needs and wants it to do? Right?
Mhm.
That's a useful, but that's not something that's currently taught. That is one of the absolute minimum things that you're going to need to do as a brand new lawyer. You're going to have the ability not to create a legal document yourself. God knows we don't teach law students that now anyway, but to be able to look at something and say, this will work. It will do what it's supposed to do. It's a valid instrument. It's a wide-ranging and accurate and reasonable opinion, and this can be given to a client, to a layperson, to a business owner, to anybody, and they can rely on it. That is, honestly, that's your only real job as a lawyer in that regard, to give clients something that will give them the solution they need, that they can count on, they can rely on, they can have confidence that it's accurate. So, sir, go ahead, because I have another thought, but I'll.
Oh, well, I mean, I might take us down a whole nother path, but I mean, I think the other theme I've heard a lot of people talk about is that how are we going to train the next generation if so much of like what you said can be
Mhm.
done with AI?
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to get the years of experience, which normally they come work at a firm, they do some grunt work, they learn for a little bit, whatever. But we're
Yeah.
not going to need them to do that anymore because that's going to be done by AI. There's going to be I heard somebody say that's going to be create like a instead of a pyramid, more like a diamond, and there won't be that many people at the
Mhm.
bottom. And actually, at a legal tech conference I went to, there was a panel of deans and law professors, and to this argument about like what law schools produce.
Mhm.
Um, one or the panelists said, if you don't like what we're producing, then don't hire them. I actually think, I was like, whoa,
Can you imagine
and
being a law student, that audience saying, "Excuse me, how much am I paying you?"
but they said it in a way it was because like that's the only way they're going to change legal
Mhm.
academia is like if they see what they're producing is not what the market demands.
Mhm.
And as a practicing attorney with my own firm for 16 years now, like I see that disconnect even more so in the last few years of what's being produced by law schools and what I really need. But anyway, I think that it's hard I think we're going to have a training issue.
Mhm.
We might need to go back to having those, what's it called, where your apprenticeship programs or something
Mhm.
like that,
Yeah.
or using AI to somehow apprenticeship future
So,
lawyers.
a big firm had me in a few months back to talk about a lot of these issues, and one of the fun things about my line of work is I get to tell lawyers things they don't want to hear. Um, and this was a big one, and we're
Okay.
talking about this very issue. And I said, I have bad news for you. I said, you are going to have to lose this idea that your associates, and I would include in larger firms your non-equity partners, whatever they're calling them these days, which are basically just superannuated associates, lose this idea that your associates, especially the younger ones, are a source of revenue for you.
Mm.
Right? That was a happy coincidence that lasted decades longer than it should have. When you were in a position where you could give on-the-job training, immersion in legal work to people who came out of law school who, and I know this because I was one of them myself, didn't have the first clue what was required in producing legal work, and you brought them up to speed. It took you years to do it, but hey, you could bill as much of time as possible
Mm.
that they generated to the clients, and the clients weren't really going to question it. Well, then they started questioning it. They stopped paying for what juniors were doing, and law firms got accustomed to this idea that, well, we have to write off 10 or 15% of what lawyers of
Yeah.
associates do, and so forth. Well, here's the problem: all that work that they would do, all the work that you got immersed in and that you learned on, that's going to be essentially mechanized and to a certain degree automated. So, as a new lawyer coming in, you won't have the raw material available to you to be able to learn the way we did. So my point to law firms is, you got to switch out this idea that your new associates, they are not a revenue source, they are an investment. They're going to cost
Mm.
you money. And
Yep.
this is something I will tell you, partners have a significant problem understanding and accepting this when I
Mm.
put this to them, right? Still this idea of, well, but who's going to pay for their training? You are, because you're their employer, right? I don't, if I start working at, LL Bean tomorrow, I don't expect that the customer is going to pay a premium to LL Bean so that I can learn how to fold the shirts back properly after people are done rifling through them, right? So,
I I don't understand how these firms didn't know that already. I already look at every associate that I hire as like I'm sinking an investment because they're
yeah.
probably going to take like I don't know a year or some more to like pay for
Oh, yeah.
themselves. and
Absolutely.
and 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 you might lose that if you get the wrong person. It's the wrong match and they don't like what you're doing and they leave you in on for a few
Yeah.
months.
I,
You
I
know,
wrote yeah I wrote an article on the back of my Law 21 blog almost 10 years ago called "The Revenue Neutral Associate." And that was me suggesting. I said, look, this is the way forward. Invest in them, generate
Mhm.
enough work from them that over the course of time you can at least break even on them, and then at a certain point you're going to go forward. But I think we're past that now as well. So yes, you mentioned apprenticeship, and I think that is the model we're going to have to revert to, but in a much more systematic way than has been the case in the past, right? Because it's not enough to simply say, well, sit there, young one, and watch what I do and learn. No, that's not, and there's no law firm out there of any level of sophistication that's still doing that. But there's had to be this recognition. The other thing, as I say to law firms is, or this other point at this big firm I was at, I said, how long's the partner track? From day one of a lawyer to the day when they're sitting in the committee room to find out whether they're an equity partner. How long is that? 10 years, 12 years? I said, okay, got to make it 4. Got to make it 4. Right? How can you get someone from first day of work to they could actually be in a position where they would be able to bring in enough business to support themselves and others, to be a recognized source of reliable, trustworthy expertise and capacity, where they are that they are professionals that other people around them can rely on. I said 4 years as a shock to them, more or less. Although I think you probably could, if you accelerated, do it. But certainly you can do it in 6. They used to do it in 6 in my day when I worked at the big firm. It was 6 years. Suddenly it's 12. I wonder why that happened. So, I'm circling around this issue without nailing it. I want to nail this issue. Unless the active legal profession, and I'm looking largely at law firms because I think you're asking, because it's asking, I think, too much of solos and very small law firms to make this the bulk of what they do. But any law firm with, say, even 10 lawyers or more has to undertake, as a matter of professional sustainability, this idea that we are going to bring someone on and we are going to intensely invest them in learning how to be a lawyer, a really good lawyer, and not just in terms of, are you an expert? What's your legal expertise? How do you connect with clients? How do you relate to people? How well do you understand what the client's world or the client's market or industry looks like? How well do you create relationships where someone can turn to you and say, yeah, I actually do think that what you say has some value. You can't do that overnight. Again, 4 years was a bit of an exaggeration for effect. You cannot put old heads on young shoulders, but we can age those heads a lot faster than we do now. And we have to get to a point where we are bringing lawyers to a point of professional, competent, confident independence faster than we do right now. And that starts, by the way, with recognizing that we are not licensing lawyers who are competent to serve clients independently, right? The entire lawyer formation system in your country and mine, because I'm here in Canada, is based on this idea that you do your legal education, you get the basics of a smattering of knowledge about how to be a lawyer, and then you are ejected into the profession. A law firm catches you, puts you down, and finishes you off, brings you the rest of the way. And that system is what is going to go away thanks largely to AI. So what we need is 2 things. Number one, we need a lawyer formation and licensing system which focuses on entry point competence in all respects, not just in terms of your knowledge, but your skills, your character, your experience, your ability to relate to and connect with people, because that's what this business is. It is people all the way down. And then a profession that, once again, takes seriously its role, that we only get to have a legal profession 10, 30, 100 years from now if everybody in the profession takes it as a responsibility that I'm going to bring someone else along, hopefully more than someone else along, take them in hand, take them under my wing, choose your analogy, and I'm going to help them get better at what they do. Because the way we have been doing it, I don't think it worked really well at all for the last few decades, but I really think it's not going to work in future.
Oh, so much. I agree with you on this. And I realized during the pandemic, I didn't take in law clerks because of the pandemic. And then it came back to bite me because I didn't have a pipeline of future associates. And then I told myself, you're always going to have a 1 or 2 law clerks, at a minimum, because you, and I even before I became an adjunct, I said, I feel like I'm just running a law school here because I'm always having law, the legal assistants, the law clerks, I'm grooming an associate or associates, and
Yeah.
it's a component of having a firm, but it's just a matter. And I was thinking about the concept of Parkinson's law about work will expand to the time
Mm.
allotted, or
Yeah.
to fill the allotted time. Whether you said 4 years, which you're telling them is what they should take for the partner track, versus 6 is what I thought 6 or 8 was what it was, and you're telling me that they're telling you 10 or 12. But
Mm.
like, if you make it more focused and condensed and say this is
Yeah.
what we got to accomplish, you'll focus more on the key skills that need to be taught, or objectives that they need to hit.
Yeah, 100%. The old Samuel Johnson line, the prospect of being hanged in a fortnight focuses the mind wonderfully. If I were in a position to say to a law firm, you got 4 years to turn this person, this brand new person who is bright and hardworking and, all these wonderful things, you wouldn't hire them if they weren't, but they know nothing. They're as close to a tabula rasa as you could ask for. You should at least assume that they are. And 4 years from today, they have to be in a position where they could open a new client account and start bringing in business and do this or whatever the criteria are in your firm to say, this is one of our professional leaders. These are one of the people that we count on. Here's someone who's part of the backbone of our practice. If you only had 4 years in which to do that, what would you focus on? What would you
Mm.
what would you throw away, and what would you focus on and include and make sure that you do? The one of the smartest people that I ever worked with in the legal field is no longer in the legal field. Matt Homan used to do legal consulting. He now runs just a terrific conference-based conference company in St. Louis called Filament. But I would do retreats with him and meetings and so forth, and he would do this all the time. He would have little breakout groups to say, okay, your job is to do this, which was fairly straightforward, but you can't do that. Right? He would take away a common element or a common aspect or a common root and so forth. How are you going to get it done? And it forced
Mm.
people to work with a limited amount, a little bit like that scene from Apollo 13 where Ed Harris dumps all the stuff onto the counter and says, this is everything those guys in that space capsule have to work with. You need to use this to turn the oxygen back on. Go to it. Right? That's what you need to be able to do as a law firm or as a lawyer, to say, I have a limited amount of time here and a limited amount of resource to do it. How am I going to get it done in a way that satisfies the professional obligations and the obligation I owe to this person whom I have taken in to say, I will help you become a lawyer.
I love that. And it just makes me think full circle how much I love board games and games, and how puzzles, and just like how we that's what we're doing. We're solving problems for our clients, and we have the confines of the rules, and we're trying to achieve an objective. And that's why I also like thinking about from a paradigm shift of, like, the rules are changing. Like, we're playing a board game. We think this is what the objective. We think these are the rules, but the rules are shifting. And
Yes.
so then we have to click the imaginary refresh button to
Mm-hmm.
see, how are we going to achieve the same goal in a different way, sort of like
Yeah.
your example with the task at hand. Well, before we start closing up, which I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I could talk to you for a long time, is that is that you had a recent article on your Substack about the coming revival of the people law sector,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think it's sort of a continuation of what we've been when saying our conversation so far. And it says that there was a legal receipts of individuals have dropped 52% from 1972 to just 25% in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of like this shift that's coming, or it has been happening, but we haven't been talking about it too much. But
Yeah.
maybe tell us a little bit more what the people law sector is, and maybe like
Yeah.
the gist of that article.
Sure. So the term isn't mine. I give credit to Professor William Henderson at Indiana University Moore School of Law. He, to my mind, he coined it. Maybe somebody else came up before him, but he popularized it at the very least in a post, several posts at a blog he ran called Legal Evolution. Bill Henderson's stuff is brilliant, by the way. If you want to get the best, most recent, and most comprehensive snapshot of the state of access to justice in the United States, he did an extensive report for the State Bar of California in 2024. Just Google that and read it, and your eyes will be opened more than you would have necessarily wanted them to be. Okay. He coined people law sector more or less to mean not quite the opposite of big law, but the focus on clients who are individuals or families or very small businesses or enterprises or startups and so forth. I don't mean startup in the big tech sense, an actual startup, right? And his point was that as time has gone on, the legal profession has kind of morphed, has kind of shifted away from serving those kinds of clients, and they've moved into large organizations, massive corporations and companies and businesses and governments and organizations of various kinds. And we can see that. I mean, going back to all those issues around the fact that access to justice is everybody kind of considers it. Yes, we know it's a dumpster fire, and nobody really seems to want to take the lead on dealing with it. So one of the things, there's a whole bunch of more issues around that, but in the article that I wrote, I basically kicked around a possible future because the thing of it is there's at least 100 possible futures for the legal sector from where we're sitting right now, 100 plausible sectors and many more implausible ones. So we're all doing scenario planning here. But one of them is that, look, given that mid-sized to large law firms are probably going to be able to automate or mechanize a fair amount of the work that they do, that they will no longer be able to make money selling the time and effort of their lawyers, it doesn't make sense for them to employ as many lawyers as they used to. Right? You need enough lawyers now in those firms to be able to replenish the partnership, to kick in money, to keep the whole enterprise going down the road. And that's about it. So I suspect that we will see firms of, say, 100, you can call 100 lawyers or more, maybe even 50 lawyers or more, depends on your jurisdiction, start to ease off and reduce. And we're starting to see very early indications of that on some of the NALP numbers. Not enough to call it a trend, but maybe some hints of that. So number one, not to hire new ones, and then eventually to start maybe carving off people who work there. I said, so on the one hand, the commercial side, which I think a lot of the work, because it tends to more towards the automatable, tends more towards the repeatable and the routine. That's where automation can reduce the number of lawyers involved. At the same time, back to my earlier point about so many more people will be empowered by AI, and they can approach the legal closer to the legal system. And now there are more opportunities for lawyers to serve that part of the market. So maybe, and I said, it's not a straight migration. I'm not suggesting somebody goes from a 7th-year associate at Kirkland & Ellis doing securitization and all the other stuff that they're doing there for private equity funds, and the next day they're helping a single mother get a divorce in wherever. No, it doesn't work like that. But over time, I think we start to see perhaps the profession start to rebalance itself a little bit more. God knows we need it. God knows people out there need the assistance of professionals who can create good relationship with them, who are trustworthy, reliable, competent, proficient, and will walk with them on their journeys where they're going. You mentioned at the start of our conversation about advocacy, to advocate, to advise, and to accompany. I think that's the core of what lawyers will do. That is I think those are the highest forms of professional service lawyers can provide: to stand up for someone or stand by someone when they have a need, to give them counsel and guidance, and to the extent you can offer it, wisdom in situations of uncertainty or risk, and to accompany them on their journey. Because again, your client's at point B and they're not happy there. They want to get to point A, they're not happy there. They want to get to point B, if they can even imagine what that looks like. And your job is not just to say, here's a map. Your job is to say, I will walk with you every step of the way. I am there with you throughout, and you can count on me. Those are the 3 roles lawyers have to do in future if we're going to have a legal profession.
No, I love that. I just watched an episode from The Lincoln Lawyer. I don't want to do a spoiler alert, whatever, but where, let's just say, an attorney goes to help the main character, and it just like, it epitome of this idea of like, he was down, he was trying to represent himself. Anyway, and then this attorney came and showed up and said, no, you need me, I've got you. And they were confident, they were competent, and they were what the client, who was also happened to be attorney, needed.
Mhm.
And just I also have seen in the progression of my practice of law that the cases that are what I would have considered quote unquote easier have
Mhm.
sort of disappeared. The
Yeah.
things that I'm getting more and more, it's just been this slow evolution over time, are
Mhm.
more and more complex. I
Yeah.
think the easier things people either do pro se, the DIY, there's a lot more software programs out there to try to help assist to do them. And so they're coming to me, the things that they messed up, someone else messed up, that
Mhm.
it's convoluted. I feel like I'm becoming like some specialist surgeon or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But and I think that's the highest and best use of our time, and getting to those three aspects of the advocate, advise, and accompany is, I do see that as the future of our profession.
Yeah, I really think so. And you know what? That's where the value is. That's where so many of us who went to law school. Yes, some people went to law school because they thought they could make a lot of money, and they went into the lines of work where they can make lots of money, and they really couldn't give whatever about justice or access or any of the important things that I think are fundamental to your ability to have a decent civic society. Okay, but a lot of people went to law school because they wanted to help, because they want to make things better, and
Hmm.
and that's pull the camera back. That's professions in general, right? If you're a doctor, you want to help people make their health better. If you are in the clergy, you want to help people make their spiritual state better. And if you are a lawyer, I think fundamentally you're in the business of helping people navigate their lives, to make their lives better, to create more opportunities for them, to help them resolve their issues, to figure out the way forward. I really believe that a good lawyer is someone who accompanies, someone who commits themselves to say, I will help you along the way. That is, again, not what law school teaches us to do. I was
Exactly.
hammered
Yeah.
home with this idea during law school: do not get close to your client. Do not,
Oh,
you know,
really?
oh yeah,
Wow. Oh,
no, no,
well,
no.
right, because we're told to have this professional
Professional distance,
barrier.
don't
Exactly. Yeah.
become a dupe of your client and all this kind of stuff, right?
No,
And
that's true. I think about that. Yeah, and we're
you
so
know,
afraid of all the things that could go wrong, all
we
that
are
stuff.
so afraid. Well, and Ruby, this is another point. Again, we could talk about it all day. We're not going to, but this sense of empathy, the ability
Mm,
the ability to relate to someone, to so that someone lets themselves be vulnerable around you and share with you something that's really important to them. And not everybody has that capacity for let other people open up to them and trust them and relate to them. And that is empathy. That is the ability to look at things from other person's perspective, to give people a break, to forgive yourself and others. These are important personal qualities. There's a lot of really interesting work being done right now in the business education world around character, around leadership character, and what are the
mm,
fundamental elements of character. And I would love to find a way to incorporate that into a future lawyer formation system, because it matters who you are. It matters the kind of person you are. And it's going to matter more in the future than it did in the past. You could be a misanthrope. You could be unpleasant to deal with. God knows the law firms are filled with those kinds of people right now, many of them in corner offices. But so long as you were an expert in your area, or you were really good at certain things, it didn't really matter, right? It's going to matter that you are someone that other people want to deal with. I give little lectures to law schools from time to time, and the message I keep hammering home to them is, over the course of your career, who you are and what you're like to deal with are going to be more important than what you know and what you can do. And in a lot of ways, that's always been the case, but no one told us that in law school. I want them to know that now. I want them to know, to have confidence in themselves and to invest in themselves going forward, that that's how you're going to become a successful and fulfilled lawyer.
I love that. It it's my husband's a consultant, and he just did some training. He was the instructor on leadership.
Mm,
And so he was telling me recently, and I was like, well, what books are you talking about? And I do some in my book on management and leadership, and sort of like the growth of your professional career. But
mhm.
I think you're so right. That needs to be usually I do a lot of leadership programs just in my normal professional life.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's normally incorporated in the legal
No,
aspect.
no,
You're right.
no.
I just
We
sort of
we
do that
just need a
anyway.
whole different. We have a whole different approach to this. We have to recognize what people are going to want from lawyers in future is going to be
Mm.
substantially different from what it's been in the past. And if that is true, and I really think it is, it doesn't make sense to keep training and educating and licensing lawyers for the old market, for what people used to need. It will only make sense to develop them and license them and form them for what people will need from this point forward. That is my bottom line on lawyer formation.
Well, I think you made your points heard, even if it's difficult for us lawyers to hear it,
Well,
like you said. But somebody has to say it. Someone has to be out there, and you have a pretty high success rate on your future predictions, right?
well,
So,
I'm
uh, well, we're at the end. We went a
mhm,
little over time, but
I'm
so
sorry.
much to know. I appreciate it. Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms, just like yours, are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's stafi.cc, and use the code RUBY, R-U-B-Y, for $500 off. So fun fact questions.
Hmm.
What would you consider a favorite board game or card game?
Oh, board game or a card game. Okay, now
Yeah.
we're two different universes here. Um, I would probably say, okay, if I'm being honest, my favorite board game is Scrabble because
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a word fiend. I'm a letter fiend. I play this cross play thing the New York Times has had right now. I'm a bit of an addict for it. I love that kind of creativity, but that's a one person, that's a solo kind of effort. If I'm playing a game, an actual board game with other people,
Uh-huh.
oh, probably Settlers of Catan.
Okay.
I think. And I'll tell you why I think I like it. A couple of reasons. One is it is fundamentally a strategy game, right? Everybody has the
Yeah.
same goal, but it's a
Right.
question of what strategy do you adopt to get there and to figure out how you're going to do it. And the strategy you adopt is different every single game because the landscape changes for each game. But the other thing about it that's cool is that you are collaborating with your competitors whether you want to or not, right? Like it's like if you need brick, I don't care how badly you need brick. If the other guy who's got brick doesn't want your sheep, you're out of luck, right? You know,
Yeah.
and right and so you cannot make progress without taking into account the goals and needs of other people. I think that's pretty cool because that's actually not that different from how you're a success in real life as well. So I'd say Scrabble and Settlers would be the ones for me.
Well, I approve. I trying to get the Scrabble out more frequently. We have the two dictionaries, and I
Mm,
try to get my kids to come out and play it.
cool.
But it reminds me of my grandma to play that, and so
Mm.
and then you're always like, is that really a word? And it's like, show me in the dictionary
Yeah,
or use it in a sentence.
yeah, absolutely.
How
Yeah,
many
that's half the
two
fun.
letter words are there? Anyway,
Mhm. Quite a few actually.
um,
Yeah.
I know. There's a whole little mini pamphlet on it. Um, what would you say is your superpower?
Oh, good Lord. Oh gosh, I don't think I have a superpower. I mean,
I mean, come on. It's like telling the future, seeing a big
well,
picture.
yeah,
Like
but
you've got some of that.
well, yeah, but but it's I don't know, but I think about a superpower though is that it's okay. I'll put it this way. I think something that I'm particularly good at, which does have value, maybe asymmetric value, is I think I'm good at helping people see things from new angles, to take a
Hmm.
different look at something, to understand it in a different light, in a new light, to say, have you considered this? Have you considered this kind of approach? To helping people recognize assumptions that they always took for granted but never realized was an assumption. And then when you take that assumption away,
Hmm.
like the point about adjunct, law professors, right? But think about what that means. It means that they don't actually care. The law schools don't care. You're an adjunct, that you are adjacent. You are an appendage. You are something they could add or drop as need be, because that's what they think about this. The same way that we talk about alternative dispute resolution. 99% of cases settle before they go to court. Which is the alternative here? Exactly.
Mhm.
Resolution or trial. Okay, set that aside. So I think I'm good at helping people see things from a different angle. And I think the reason for that is that I've had some experience in being kind of an outsider. That, in various, but not in many ways, of course, I'm the walking textbook definition of privilege. And I acknowledge that, and I own that. But there's other aspects in terms of where I grew up and how I approached various things. Like, I'm the first person in my family to go to law school, right? And the first person hardly any of us knew to go to law school. And so, and I think and I found it weird. I talked to, like, this is not a thing in Canada. Americans talk about first generation lawyers, and I say, what's that? And I said, that's someone who doesn't have any lawyers in their family. I said, I thought that was everybody. I thought that was normal, right? But this idea that, but anyway, it's a different kind of thing. When you've experienced life as someone who is outside, who is not in positions of where you assume everything is meant and made for you, right? And again, I'm a straight white dude, right? I mean, I've that is most of my life, but to the extent I have had experience as an outsider, that helps, because when you see something from the outside, you will see things that people on the inside cannot or will not see, and I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I've lived in 6 countries, and
Mm.
I think every like leader should live extensively in a foreign country, because
Mhm.
it helps you see the world from a different perspective and challenge what you consider as normal, or like the standard, and
Mhm.
then you start realizing it's not everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see. I'm remembering all the questions. What would you consider
Mhm.
a habit that contributes to your success?
Ooh, right. I get up in the morning. Um, Honestly, I just keep, God knows there's days where it's hard to, it's the days when you wake up, you look at the phone, no, not today. Right? I forget it's attributed to Woody Allen, and I hate attributing anything to that guy, but I think he was the one who said something like, 90% of life is showing up.
Mm.
And it's
It
just,
was him who said that? Really?
well, this I've heard it
Okay.
attributed. I really hope it's not,
Okay.
because,
All right.
but
We'll figure
whatever.
it
But
out.
whoever said it, but honestly, I mean, I think it's just show up, put in the time. I read as much as I can about the not just the legal sector, but about the world. I mean, I list geopolitics as one of my hobbies, and it's not because I necessarily enjoy reading about the current state of the Strait of Hormuz, but because that stuff matters, because the macro world affects all of our micro worlds and absolutely applies to the legal profession, the legal community. So I try to be as informed as I can. I try to get different smart perspectives. I don't get every perspective, because A, that's pointless, and B, most perspectives are crap. But I try to get as many good perspectives as I can on an issue, and I try to figure out, it sounds loftier than I would like it to be, but I would like to know what the truth is. I would like to know how things actually are. And I would like to know that so I can help other people see the same things, so that they can, because if you can see the truth, you understand the truth. And none of us ever really see it. The best you can do is approach it from a distance, because it's like looking at the sun. At a certain point, your eyes burn out. You cannot get the full thing of it, but the closer you can get to it, the better it will guide your path. And I'm just trying to help people make their way. I'm trying to help lawyers make their way. Like I said at the start, I was only a lawyer very briefly. It wasn't for me. I wasn't for it. I would have liked for it to have been, though, because I really think the law is an honorable and a necessary and an admirable profession. I think it's really hard to do well, And I think when it's done well, it is so meaningful and so important, not just to individual people, but to society in general. And to the extent I have any kind of mission, it's to help to preserve and promote and improve that profession so that it can get better at helping people get what they need. That's as close to a bottom line as I can give you.
Well, that's super inspirational, and we're grateful for your service to us as a profession,
Yeah.
even if you're telling us things we don't want to hear or things from a different perspective, which I think also helps us grow, just like anything would, to be able to sort of expand our capabilities and our reach and our ability to help represent our clients.
Yeah.
Uh, so what would you suggest is well, you read a lot. I could tell you you read a lot, but what would you say is a book or a podcast you would recommend? And it's okay to have a shameless plug of your future.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks. I can't. So I can't recommend a podcast because embarrassing, I don't listen to any.
Okay.
I think I'm coming up on. I've appeared on like 100 podcasts, but I'm a visual, not an audiovisual guy, and
Okay.
I just consume voracious. I mean, I watch one TV show a week, right? That's it. I'm not a video based person. Um, but in terms of books, I mean, like there's a stack behind me here which I could probably run through in terms of professional books. But the I'll tell you the book that I read all the time, that I'm once again rereading. It's on my nightstand table. It's not a professional book. It's The Lord of the Rings,
Mm.
and it's been my favorite book pretty much ever since I read it. And I will tell you, it pains me that it also appears to be the favorite book of a lot of people who don't understand it, who think who take a look at the Palantir, which was this evil crystal
Mhm.
ball which sucks you in and turns you to the dark side. I think, what a good name for our company, that kind of thing.
I was about to
Um,
say.
right? There's a whole weird evil tech bro thing going on, but they love the other things. I was like, you don't understand. Something I like to ask people. I don't know if you've read the Lord of the Rings or seen the movies or anything else like this.
I've seen the movies. Sorry, I haven't read the books, but yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So what I like to ask people is who's the most important character in the Lord of the Rings? Um, right? It's a really interesting
I
question
didn't
because
know any of the people's
no,
names, but
no, that's totally fine. Well, anybody
I
who's
think
like
I'm
read the
getting The
books.
Hobbit. The Hobbit is the Lord of the Rings. That's the whole stuff. That's all together, right?
Yeah, the Hobbit's kind of the prequel to the Lord of the
Oh,
Rings.
oh,
Hobbit's like this,
okay.
and Lord of the Rings is like that. Um, anyway, so some people, the answer someone gives you tells you a lot about them. Some
Well,
people
I
will
have
say,
sort of
mhm,
is there like the white-haired wizard guy?
yes, Gandalf. Yeah, Gandalf
Gandalf.
is
What does
yeah.
that mean about me then?
Oh, it's a categorical thing. Some people say Gandalf
Okay.
the wizard. Some people say Aragorn the warrior. Some people say Frodo. The heroic the guy that
Oh, right.
and for my money, the most important character in the book is Sam, who is Frodo's friend and
Oh,
servant and
oh,
assistant.
guy.
Right? He
Mhm.
is the lowest ranking person in that entire book. He's the only commoner that we really meet of any length,
Mm. Uh-huh.
aside from a couple people in Gondor, and and he's nobody, right? He's an afterthought. He's only on this trip because he's basically there to help and support Frodo. He's his buddy, he's his friend, and it turns out that everything at the end falls to him, and that he is the only, and
Mhm.
he becomes the most important person. Nothing would have worked but for him, and not
Mm.
just in terms of his role as a linchpin, but also in terms of the and the reason, and I'll bring this on for landing, explain why I think it's important, why it matters to me. The only Sam at some point has to carry the ring for this evil corrupting ring for a very short period of
Yeah.
time, and it tries to corrupt him, and it fails because what the ring does, it finds the thing that in your heart that you want the most, and it flames it, and turns it to a need for dominance and jealousy and acquisition and everything else.
Mhm.
And Sam is so incredibly simple and so fundamentally humble. All the dude
Mm.
wants is to go home and tend his garden. That's it. Right.
Mm.
And it was
Yeah.
that humility that saved him. And I think humility is the as I read just for earlier today, it's the foundation of all other virtues. It is a virtue the legal profession could really stand to learn and really stand to exercise. So for me, Lord of the Rings is my favorite book. There's so much in there. As I like to say, I like to reread it because I like to be reminded of what it's like when the good guys win. And it's part of my belief that the good guys are going to win fundamentally, foundationally, sooner or later. So that's my book. That's my takeaway.
Oh, well, it's definitely inspirational because especially like you were saying that when you do some of these speeches and conversations with attorneys that they seem distraught. But to circle back and give us hope at the end of the day, see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is what we need to hear because we're overcoming a lot of changes for throwing at us sort of all different angles and such evolution in our profession at this time. So it's good to have that. How can people find you and stay in touch with you?
I'm in the process of throwing out my old website and creating a new one, but I've been there for a few months now. So temporarily, best place to track me down is I have a Substack newsletter. I publish anywhere from between every 2 weeks to every 6 weeks, depending on how busy I am. It's free because I'm interested in getting my ideas out there and spread out. So just look up for my name, Substack, you'll find it. I'm on Blue Sky. I tossed over X quite some time ago, and you can probably contact me there. So between those two, you can if I haven't yapped at you enough in this this program, feel free to drop by and I can yap at you some more.
Well, Jordan, it's been a pleasure. I feel like it
Sure.
brings a lot of the reading your material to life, getting to have a conversation with you and having you here on the podcast. So we're everyone's looking forward to those who are going to be at ABA Tech Show for your keynote. And I'm looking forward to your future book and just staying in touch with you and continuing to follow your advice, inspiration, and musings of the present and future.
Thank you very much, Ruby. It was great chatting with you today. Really appreciate the opportunity, and be well.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.